What can you do if your parrot is plucking? And we're not really going to understand why they pluck, but why do they pluck? Come here. Come here, Bella. This is Bella, our rescue galah, and you could see she plucked. Now, when I adopted her, she was like that. So far, fortunately, it hasn't gotten worse. What do you do? Hey guys, I'm Kaylin, the author of the new book, Get to Know African Grey and Cape Parrots, and the Parrot Bliss Bond. I have over 22 species of parrots. I love my parrots. If you're here to get blissed out or to get a little of my experience with plucking, then you're in the right place. My mission is to help you increase your bond with your parrot, decreasing the need for rescues. Hello, Hera. You want to get up there? If you are used to hanging out and you have already met River and Bella, then you're in the right place. I love my YouTube members and my fans almost as much as I love my parrots. Feather plucking, man, that should be like a 4-letter word, and it probably is if you have parrots. Parrots pluck for a variety of reasons, and they can be anything from like a yeast infection or a skin allergy kind of thing, all the way to just being stressed out or living with a smoker. Even if you smoke outside and you come in and you wash your hands, I think it's been proven that it stays on your hands enough that it still affects your birds. So it's kind of a problem. But they can also pluck because they're being parents, because they're stressed, because there's a dog barking at them. All sorts of things that are going to make your parrot either physically sick and have plucking issues, or like emotionally and psychologically off to the point to where they're plucking. Plucking can be something that a parrot does. They'll take their feathers and use them to line their nest for their babies, for their eggs. Or it can be something that is a mutilation, a self-destruction, sort of like when people do things like cut themselves and make themselves bleed, something like that. What do you do about it? There are a couple of different things you can do about it. You can do something like, you know, when a dog goes to the vet and they put that cone around the dog's neck so that it won't lick itself and, you know, get the scab, that kind of thing. You can get either a cone or a ball. It's kind of like a round ball that they'll put on a parrot's neck. Your vet can do that for you so that they can't reach to pluck themselves. They'll hate it initially, but it should help. You can try to figure out what the source of your parrot's plucking is, which you should do no matter what. Take them to the vet and see if it is some sort of like skin issue or something like that, where they're having a problem like a yeast infection that can be cured. That will, of course, take care of the problem pretty good and quickly. You can try to see if like the dog next door or your dog is barking and stressing out your parrot, in which case you really want to try to keep the dog in a separate area, kind of thing. You want your parrot's cage to be somewhere, or their perch, where they're not subject to that barking, so that they don't feel scared and afraid, because after all, dogs are predators. Now you might say, but my parrot and my dog get along. And I would say to you, you know, that could very well be. But don't forget, at a deeper level, the parrot knows that this is a predator. You may have a pet tiger, and you and the tiger might be great friends, but it doesn't mean that your body doesn't sit there going, and it doesn't mean that one day the tiger might not go into just a normal animal mode. And so even if you get along great right now, even if your parrot and your dog get along great right now, it has nothing to do with anything, but it can change. So the best thing to do is make sure that your parrot has a clean environment, a environment that seems like there's nothing around that's going to threaten them, so that they feel safe and secure. Your parrot has plenty to do so that they're engaged. There's nothing worse than being alone in a cage all the time, or even 10 hours a day, even like 12 hours a day. Parrots are built, and their intelligence is created to allow them to be in the wild and fly around. And in the wild, unless they are nesting, they tend to have a territory, but they'll fly from one place to another all the time. And because there's parrots and other animals in the jungle, I don't think they like constantly change a tree, but you can imagine that they bite some parts of this off and that off, and they do change some of that landscape. They do affect it. Again, maybe not greatly, but the point is they're not used to like just being in a cage all the time. They're used to having this vast landscape. Not only that, but if you have ever had problems with directions, or if you notice like young children don't know which way to go to get back home, like if you go around the block, that's a certain level of intelligence that gets built. And children learn to look around, and they learn to get a sense of direction. It's, when you think about it, parrots, they not only have a sense of direction for which ways to go in within their territory, which way to go back home, or they hear their partner and they know which way to go toward their partner, what to avoid, what not to avoid. But they also have, like, you know, like we have two-dimensional, right? You go straight, you go right. They have three-dimensional, right? You go up, you go down, because they have different places that they can go, that can be higher, a higher tree, that can be a mountain, go lower down. You know, they kind of have more of that spatial intelligence. So we're talking about a very intelligent bird that can get very bored. No matter what kind of species you have, this can be problematic. Plus, frankly, there are some species that are like more prone to plucking, such as golden conures, African greys, sometimes Amazons, cockatoos. So plucking can signify that there is something wrong physically. It can signify that there's something wrong emotionally. Something is bothering them. They are lonely. Something is off. Or it can be something psychological. They're bored. It's, you know, they're unhappy. So it's really important to try to work with those things. Now, some more things you could do. You can try getting some CBD oil. CBD oil is going to help them naturally relax, and it can help them de-stress. For example, if you have a parrot that, and now I have no birds in my video. If you have a parrot that has separation anxiety, you could try giving them the CBD. It can help them relax. My very first cure is to have 2 of a species. Generally speaking, with some exceptions, because there are some parrots where you cannot put 2 of a species, let alone any 2, in a cage together. There are some species that are more independent, but generally speaking, an African gray, a green cheek conure, Quakers, the golden conures, parrotlets. These are most species you can put 2 in a cage, and that way, although it has to be a bigger cage, you don't look at the dimensions that are appropriate for one parrot. You have to increase that, get a bigger cage. When you do that, most of the time it solves the problem. Why? Now they feel safe and secure. Now they have a friend. Now they have a buddy. Now they have someone to cuddle up to for warmth. They have someone that they don't sit and talk to them like maybe we would at coffee, but they do something similar. They do bond. They do connect. They do relate to each other. It provides a lot of things that are going to make them a lot happier. So you can do the CBD oil. You could try that. Another thing you can try is you could try spraying them either with just water. Sometimes they're like, when it's a dry season, their skin gets itchy because it gets dry. You could try spraying them and get some aloe. And I tried this, and it didn't really work for me, but I got some drinkable aloe juice, mixed it with lots of water, and I tried spraying my parrots. I just didn't feel like it really worked, but I wasn't really consistent. I can't say it would or wouldn't work. I do think it's good for them. I don't think it's unbeneficial. I do think it can be beneficial. You can also try going to the veterinarian, and if your veterinarian feels like there's an issue, they can prescribe Haverdol. It's a drug that basically, my understanding is it kind of gives them the dopamine so that then they don't try to pluck to create that within themselves. And so you kind of try to nip it in the bud so that they then don't want to pluck, kind of thing. I know someone who did that for their conure who was plucking. It worked. The conure stopped plucking, but the problem is, since the problem didn't get fixed, the cause was still there, so they went back to plucking after, afterwards. I personally I will use a drug like that if one of my parrots is sick and it's going to cure them, but otherwise, I'm kind of a natural girl. I kind of like to try to avoid things like that. For me, if I can have 2 parrots to keep each other company so that they're happier, that's my first choice. And I find that works. I think that that's like one of my number one go-tos. My other number one go-to is going to be a really good diet for my parrot, because when your parrots are healthy, they're less likely to maybe have a yeast infection or whatever, or dry skin. A healthy parrot's body is going to be able to take care of them better. But for that emotional component, I always suggest 2. Now, someone had written to me and said that they just rescued an Amazon, and the Amazon has almost completely plucked itself. So I would make sure to try to figure out what's going to make the Amazon feel the most comfortable possible. Sometimes it's being in the cage because that's their place of safety and security. Sometimes it's getting to be able to come out. So you kind of have to assess what your parrot needs. Like I said, Amazons are one of the ones that pluck. I would go to the vet. There may be a problem that can get cured. If they're having some sort of problem like a yeast infection, I'm sure there are other possible things that could be going on, but I would definitely have them checked out at the vet. Then I would make sure to get them on a nice, good, healthy diet and really try to take care of them so that they seem like they're happy. It makes a huge difference. I have adopted pluckers. I think you saw Hera. Let me see if I can get Hera back in the picture. She's right here hanging out with me. Hera is a plucker, but it hasn't gotten worse. Now, when they were outside and the roof was being done, she and her partner Zeus, and if you hear Hera, Hera, that's him calling. Their cage was out in the front lanai, and when the roof was being done, it freaked them out and they plucked a little more. Generally, they don't pluck too much. I could see that she has some pin feathers, and at least it hasn't gotten worse and they don't mutilate. I adopted them as adults that had already plucked. I was fine with that. I still wanted to give them a wonderful home, and so it's okay with me. My vet said, it's kind of like being bald. If they're not mutilating and if they don't have a problem, it's, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It doesn't necessarily look good. And sometimes people judge it, but, like in my African gray cases, they're fine. And like I said, it hasn't gotten worse. So it is what it is. And like I said, I deal with it by having 2. They're happy together. I deal with it by giving them the best diet I can. And frankly, they've been to 2 different vets for it. So at this point, I'm like, it is what it is. Once they have pulled out their feathers long enough, they don't necessarily grow back. And that's why Hera has a few spots, like right on her shoulders, on her wings, that look a little bald. But it is what it is. So try those things. Definitely go to the vet. Definitely try to give your Amazon attention. I know this may sound silly, but I talk to my parrots and I tell them things like, I would tell the Amazon, look, I know you didn't have a home and maybe that stressed you out, or maybe there were some other parrots at the rescue that stressed you out. But now you're here and you're in my flock. Maybe we'll get another Amazon for you. Or another parrot, just so you have the sound of another parrot. Maybe we'll play YouTube videos of parrot sounds. Parrots like that, jungle sounds. But now you're safe and secure, and I'm going to do everything I can to love you and take care of you. It sounds silly, but parrots pick up on energy. They probably pick up on the tone of our words. They probably pick up on just our vibe. And I find that it makes a huge difference. As you know, I have over 22 species of parrots. I don't have any right now that are like plucking and hurting themselves. I do have some 2 conures that they pluck to put feathers in their nest box, even though I give them wood that they can take apart, even though I give them aspen shavings that they can use. I put them in their nest box. It can be a natural behavior, and so it's kind of hard to deal with, because you're like, is this natural? Is this unnatural? Is it this? Is it that? It is a puzzle to try to figure out. It can happen in the wild. It does seem to happen more in captivity, and it gives us a mystery to solve and something to really try to work with. Because when you do work with your parrot and you bond with them, there's very few things that are better, except things like family. And so this is going to be your best friend, and putting the time in, loving them, taking care of them, hi Hera, and really appreciating them goes a long ways. I hope that really gives you some ideas. I hope that kind of sparks and inspires you, because I think it's so worth trying to help your parrot and trying to really create that blissful bond and trying to help them solve the plucking problem. If you want some awesome parrot merch, this shirt is also available as a bag, and they are on shop.parrotbliss.com. My daughter makes some awesome designs, and we sell her designs on the site. Otherwise, I hope that has helped you. Please be sure to give me one of these and a comment below. It helps my juice, and then I will catch you in the next feathered video.